50, Chris said. Thank you very much, Chris. Much appreciated for your insight on the economy. So, but on the overall, things are looking good for Africa, and we must just fix a couple of things. So we get the mechanics in to fix a couple of things. Fantastic. Chris, those are good news to hear. And on that note, Chris and colleagues, I want to invite to the stage the moderator for the next session, Chris Joyner. Vincent Joyner, to please join us for the session on Focus on West Africa.
Good morning, everybody. We seem to have a technical problem. This morning we have the ministerial session on West Africa with a focus on Senegal, so through the eyes of Senegal. And we have the honor to have the Minister of Tourism and Air Transport from Senegal, the Honorable Abdoulaye Diouf Sarr, with us. For information, we'll start off with a brief overview of West Africa. I know that many of you know West Africa quite well already, and the last slide I'll show will kind of demonstrate that. Then the Minister will give an overview of Senegal today, and then we'll enter into questions and answers. The Minister will be communicating in French, so if your French is limited to bonjour or something like that, never fear, HICA's here, and there will be a translator. So the Minister will be translated as we go along this morning. West Africa, or let's say Africa, is the fastest growing continent in the world economically, and West Africa is the fastest growing region in Africa. So that says something about what's actually happening in West Africa. And I've been up and down to Senegal and West Africa for the last 20 years, but I hadn't been up for about 3 or 4 years. And I went to the Ivory Coast, and things are moving there. And in Senegal, I think every second house, every second office is being expanded. There's an extension happening. You see cranes everywhere. Things are really, really moving. Some of the problems we've heard of recently in West Africa is Ebola. And I saw that some of the countries most affected by that are expecting a 25% drop in their GDP this year, or the growth of GDP this year, but there's still growth. In West Africa, we have many countries. It's quite diverse, like many aspects of Africa. What we find is 4 big countries as such, the biggest one obviously being Nigeria. The West Africa region accounts for approximately 380 million people. So that's more or less equivalent to the size of Europe in terms of population. The vast majority of the country's populations are below 24 years of age, so ranging between 50 to 70% of the population. So it's a very young population. GDP growth is around about 7%, and again, it varies depending on the country. What else can I remember from my presentation? In terms of corruption, I'm working with some funds at the moment, investment funds, and one of them has $500 million to invest in hotels in Africa over the next few years. And one of their questions is always not if there's corruption, is how bad is corruption? Whether that's justified or not is another question. When we look at Senegal, and the Minister may address this issue, and if he doesn't, I'll ask the question. The question around corruption and transparency. In terms of the Mo Ibrahim rankings, Senegal comes out 10th out of 54 countries. So I think Senegal is one of the pillars of democracy and stability in Africa. And the other one, the other kind of pillar of stability in West Africa is Ghana. And Chris mentioned them a few times. We've got Nigeria, and I think we all know the stories of Nigeria. And we've got the Islamic extremists, and I say that the so-called Islamic extremists in the north of the country. And I'll be talking to the Minister about that and seeing if that's a potential to spread to Senegal. If we look at the World Economic Forum and the Competitive of Nation report, if I remember correctly, Senegal comes out about 112th out of 144 countries. Ghana, I think, is 111. and then Nigeria comes in, I think, 127th. But one thing that really surprised me was looking up the statistics is that in Senegal, on average, it takes 9 days to start a company. In South Africa, it takes us something like, it takes 6 days in Senegal and 19 days in South Africa. So in terms of being business friendly, and I've got some ex-colleagues who started a hotel chain up in Senegal, there's very little bureaucracy. And so things move ahead pretty quickly, and I think, again, they rank about 50 or 60th in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of bureaucracy. And in terms of cooperation between business and labor, it's very positive. South Africa comes out 144th in terms of the World Economic Forum's analysis. That's 144th out of 144 countries. And I think Senegal is coming in at something like 67. Okay. So that's all I can remember from my presentation. There was one last thing, the last slide I remember quite well. There's approximately 140 hotels in the pipeline in Africa. And of those, over half are in West Africa. And obviously the big chunk goes to Nigeria. There's about 40 hotels being built in Nigeria. But Senegal, with a population of about 14 million, compared to about 170 million in Nigeria, there's 7 hotels being developed in Senegal. So Senegal is one of those countries, and we're very, very honored to have the Minister of Tourism and Air Transport with us. It's making a move. And I was looking at I had some slides on the trend lines, but we can see over the last 10 years or so, just the trend lines going up, up, and up in terms of economic development. Education could be improved upon, but what we see is the number of people entering is not that high into secondary and tertiary education. However, the quality is very, very good. And so I think in terms of the 144 countries in the World Economic Forum analysis, I think Senegal comes out at about 60th out of 144 countries in terms of quality of education. And so I think they've got the quality versus quantity issue perhaps right, in that those who do go through a very good quality education. So on that, I'd like to call on the Minister. Bonjour, Monsieur. Monsieur le Ministre. Si vous pouvez, c'est très bien. Merci. Vous allez faire votre présentation. Could we just load the Minister's presentation, please? Ils vont le mettre là tout de suite. Ça va durer combien de temps à peu près?
Rapidement, ça va pas durer 5 minutes.
D'accord, très bien. Vous allez faire en anglais, en français? En français.
En français.
D'accord. Donc, je vais demander quelqu'un de lui donner un micro.
Je peux démarrer.
Ok, je vais juste mettre là. Ok.
On démarre, je crois. Ils ne sont pas prêts.
So do we have the Minister's presentation? No. Okay, we have a problem. Okay.
Donc j'aimerais remercier et saluer tous ceux...
En fait, ce que vous allez faire, vous allez parler, et je crois que moi je parle au micro, et moi je l'écoute, je rends directement.
D'accord.
Sinon, ça me prend du temps.
Ok. Je salue toute l'assistante
On va parler, continuez.
et j'aimerais bien vous transmettre les salutations de tout le peuple sénégalais.
I'm conveying the greetings of the Senegalese people, and I'm welcome to be here this morning.
Nous sommes heureux d'être présents ce matin au niveau de la HICA pour échanger avec vous, pour vous parler de l'expérience de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et particulièrement l'expérience du Sénégal.
We are quite pleased to be here this morning to share with HICA and to tell you about the experience in Western African countries, but particularly for Senegal.
Notre présence ce matin est une présence importante pour nous parce que nous sommes conscients que ce matin, nous avons dans le monde du tourisme ce que le président Léopold Sédar Senghor appelait le rendez-vous du donner et du recevoir.
It's very relevant for us to be here because as former President Sédar Senghor said that we are here to give and to receive.
Nous sommes venus donc à ce rendez-vous du donner et du recevoir pour, c'est vrai, vous parler du Sénégal, mais essayer aussi de recevoir de vous.
Yes, we're here to speak about Senegal, but also to learn from you.
Le Sénégal est en réalité le pays le plus occidental de l'Afrique de l'Ouest,
Continue.
qui se situe effectivement dans la pointe la plus proche de l'ensemble des autres capitales du monde.
Senegal, as you see, is located in West Africa. We are really in the west of Africa, and we have quite a good location comparing to the rest of the world countries.
C'est un véritable carrefour qui, en réalité, dans l'histoire, mais aussi dans le présent, joue un rôle extrêmement important en Afrique.
Senegal, as you know, are playing a very major role in Africa. I think you're aware of that.
C'est un pays de 13 millions d'habitants, mais aussi d'une superficie de 196 456 km².
We have a population of 13 million inhabitants and quite a very big country.
Et ce pays-là a la particularité d'être un pays très démocratique qui n'a jamais connu de conflit politique ou social.
It's a very democratic country. We never have a political conflict or any kind of civil war there in Senegal.
Qui a aussi une diversité culturelle, un rayonnement culturel, une culture d'hospitalité extrêmement importante.
We also have a diversity in our cultural settings, and also people are free to do whatever they're in Senegal.
D'ailleurs, quand on parle de ce pays, on dit le pays de la teranga. Teranga veut dire hospitalité.
It's a very hospitable country. The word used is Teranga. Teranga means hospitality.
La plus grande ressource du Sénégal est sa ressource humaine, parce que nous considérons en fait que la ressource humaine est la première ressource de l'humanité.
One of the major resources in Senegal, as you know, it's a human resource, because we believe that it's the best resource to have in a country.
Et pour le Sénégal, il y a deux leviers de son développement, c'est l'agriculture, trois leviers disons, l'agriculture, le tourisme et la pêche.
So we have three areas of development in Senegal. We have agriculture, we have fishery and tourism.
Et par rapport au tourisme, le Sénégal a 700 km de côte et un tourisme balnéaire très actif.
So as far as tourism is concerned, we have almost like 700 kilometers of the coastal area.
Mais nous ne parlerons pas que des points forts. Tout à l'heure, nous parlerons bien entendu de quelques points faibles de la situation touristique du Sénégal.
We will be speaking about a couple of strengths of tourism in Senegal, but also a couple of weaknesses as well.
Depuis 3 ans, le président Macky Sall a mis en place un plan qu'on appelle le plan Sénégal émergent, qui est un plan différent des autres plans, parce que c'est un plan qui est opérationnel, qui repose sur un certain nombre de projets très concrets que nous voulons faire au Sénégal.
Since President Macky Sall takes power, he has put in place a plan, what he's calling is like a kind of a development economic plan, an emergent plan, which will be taking into account a couple of factors, economic factors.
Ce plan-là repose sur 17 réformes et 27 projets phares.
They have like 17 ways to change the economy, and combien de
27 projets phares.
And 27 projects, major projects, to be carried out by the government.
Les 17 réformes sont préoccupées à améliorer l'environnement des affaires au Sénégal.
So those 17 reforms are there to change the economic or the business environment in Senegal.
C'est pourquoi je veux dire qu'au Sénégal, les affaires effectivement sont sécurisées et les investisseurs sont mis dans des conditions d'investissement que nous jugeons optimales.
So in Senegal, we have quite a conducive environment for business people, and they're quite safe to operate in the business activities.
Je vais d'ailleurs inviter Monsieur le modérateur à revenir rapidement au Sénégal parce que maintenant ce n'est plus 9 jours, il faut une journée, vous allez le matin à la PIX, l'après-midi vous rentrez avec votre société créée.
Today it's very easy to start a business. I will speak to the moderator again. It's not 9 days as he said it, but it's just a day. You have a company already created, just for a day.
Tout cela, c'est pour permettre à l'investisseur d'aller vite, mais d'aller dans des conditions sécurisées.
This to allow the investor or businessman to be quick and to fast-track this company to be created.
Au plan foncier, il n'y a pas de discrimination. Vous pouvez être investisseur, venir au Sénégal, acquérir vos terres dans les mêmes conditions que les nationaux et avoir effectivement votre tout titre de propriété dans les 23 jours.
As far as land tenure is concerned, we don't have any discrimination. You can come there and you can buy and be an owner as quick as possible.
Il n'y a aussi aucune contrainte au niveau de rapatriement des bénéfices. À ce niveau-là aussi, il y a une sécurisation importante que nous fournissons à l'investisseur.
For the benefits or for your the money that you can make there are no constraints. You can send your money wherever you want. It's also really conducive.
Au plan fiscal, il y a des facilitations au niveau de la TVA qui font que l'investisseur aussi est dans de bonnes conditions.
Our tax law as well is quite good for companies. So companies that will come and can maybe have a couple of tax breaks or whatsoever.
Nous remettrons